How's it going, aliens? My name's Ialien. Today I'm back on another Identity 5 video, and today's video is my COA 5 prediction guide. I recently did a breakdown and recap of every single COA team, so if you want more information on the teams playing, make sure to check that one out. But without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so let's go to the COA screen. So this is the bracket. It's single elimination. First, I'll kind of do an overview of the four groups. The top left group is all Japanese teams, AG, SZ, SST. The bottom left group is kind of the old guard in terms of these were the powerhouses of the first year of IVL. ZQ won both seasons that year, and Weibo made it to the finals, and GG obviously won COA last year. The top right group is really just Wolves. ACT and MS are both very good teams, but there's not many teams strong enough to really compete with Wolves, and these teams are probably the two of the three weakest teams remaining in terms of their performance so far. And the bottom right group is a hunter carry group for the most part. DAO5 has DX, one of the best hunters. MRC has XC, one of the best hunters. And GR has PPX, who's still one of the best hunters. So let's get into the predictions. See, we're group stage. I got everyone correct here. These incorrect. What messed me up was really the order of it. Like, I had Wolves, AG, and Weibo all making it out of this group, and I had SST, ACT, MRC making it, which is correct. I had GGGRSZ, which is correct, and I had DAO5 ZQ. The only miss that I made in terms of group was I picked GH over MS, which was a mistake, but that was a really good series that could have gone either way. But overall, pretty decent predictions. I wish I could have gotten the order better, but still impressive. Wait, so now let's get into the matchups themselves. So we have AG versus SZ. AG, I would have to pick to win this. SZ has not been performing well so far. They have not been performing well in COA. They had two poor performances, and they had a pretty impressive performance against BL, but BL didn't have their main hunter. SZ has been a team known to surprise, so there's no doubt they could pull off the upset, but AG just definitely looks like the stronger Japanese team at the moment. Next we have ZQ versus Weibo. This will be a very close matchup. I'd say it could go either way for me personally, because I think ZQ will be the favorite. But Weibo, while they did lose two matches in group stage, they looked very impressive against B4U in their final matchup. And similar to SZ beating BL, B4U wasn't playing great. BL, B4U, those are some of the weaker teams in the field of 16. So I understand why some people may not take that as that high of a win when you do lose to Wolves, which was really a given. But really the loss that hurts is the loss to AG. But I think Weibo's playing really well. Their survivors showed out against B4U, and if you really look at their loss to Wolves, they went 3 rounds. They played them decently tough. Yang got ties against Wolves, which is impressive in its own right. And Yang has looked pretty good throughout the tournament against AG. AG just outplayed them. I don't think they really expected AG to come out that strong out of the gate. But that was more of them being outplayed rather than Weibo just playing poorly. It's a really hard matchup. For me, I'll say that Weibo is my dark horse of the tournament, of the 12 teams left. I think they're a team that's not getting a lot of attention, but they can go all the way to the finals. I can really see them going all the way to the finals. But I do have to pick ZQ to make it through. Next, we have in the top right bracket, ACT versus MS. And in this bracket, this is another really hard matchup. It's a really difficult matchup because while you usually will want to pick ACT as they are the IVO team, ACT, despite winning 2 games and coming second, they've been playing very poorly. They played really poorly against SST, which I put more onto them being nervous in their first ever match. MRC, they played a lot better. But then against BZ, they played really poorly again and almost lost to them. And BZ was a really strong team. They were definitely a surprise of COA, but relative to everyone else, they are one of the weaker teams of the 16. So to see them struggle that badly concerns me. MS played very well. MS could have beaten ZQ. MS could have beaten Dow 5. Those are 2 very good IVO teams, and they could have beat either one. And MS did beat GH, which was a strong global team, and they beat them. I have to go with ACT here just because their experience in the being IVO, but I won't be surprised either way it goes. Next in the bottom right, we have GR versus MRC. GR actually has a really good chance here. They're a good matchup for MRC. We've seen this matchup a lot, and GR has always made these matches very close. MRC survivors are not playing at a high level right now, and they do not look as good as they looked autumn season of IVL. So that concerns me about MRC. But XC is playing as well as ever, and if you have to take XC or PPX, GR survivors aren't playing great either. So if I have to take XC or PPX, right now I'm taking XC as a no-brainer. Next, in the top left, we have SST versus AG. Everyone's going to pick SST here. Everyone's going to pick SST. All of the experts, the MCs, everyone's picking SST here. SST is very strong. They're known as the best global team. Their hunting has had the highest win rate of any team in COA so far. Their survivors have put up impressive performances, beating IVL hunters such as U and XC, four-manning XC. They beat XC 2 out of 3 matches. I think they beat U both matches, or one of the 2. No, yeah, both matches. So far they've won 4 out of their 5 matches against IVL Hunter, only losing to XC Dreamwitch. But then you look at them against BZ, and they lost to BZ's Bloody Queen round 1 on Chinatown. That's unacceptable. You cannot be a COA winning team and losing to Bloody Queen round 1. You'll never see an IVO team lose to Bloody Queen round 1, especially when you do have Ford at play, especially when Chinatown is not a strong map for her. That worries me. Second round, they really should have lost to BZ's Photo. I know they did end up winning, but that was a throw on UKG's part. That was a complete win for him. and he threw that match. So when I look at, okay, you lost her round 1 play queen, you should have lost her round 2 photo. That's not very consistent, and that's not what I'd like to see as a Survivor team. That's what concerns me about SST. AG has just looked very strong. They started off the tournament nervous, you could tell, against B4U when they got 4-man by Sprinter's Dream Witch, but that was really only because the doctor made a mistake. She's nervous. It's his first ever time playing, and him getting terror shot. He still played very well in that match, but you can't come back from a 5-second terror shock like that. But then they immediately rebound and they 4-man Sprinters pole in the game after, and that shows incredible resilience from these survivors. They really beat Sprinter Sculptor 3rd round without basement. It's a win, and that's just happens sometimes. But they really outplayed his Sculptor, so they basically beat him 2 of the 3 matches. The only match they lost was a complete throw from Nerves. Then they face Weibo. They completely outplayed Weibo. They just beat Weibo. They beat Yang's Poland. They look very good as survivors. And then they go against Wolves and they beat Alex 1st round. They really should beat his Bonbon round 2, but he's just a great hunter. And then 3rd round, they pushed his Anne for a win. They did tie, but it was very close. Their survivors right now look better than SST. Their survivors look more consistent than SST. So I definitely think they have the survivor advantage in this matchup. In terms of hunting, PP Cha, their hunting has been very strong as well. Even starting from the beginning against B4U, his Dream Witch really 4-man B4U round 1. He tied, but that's a complete throw. You can't expect that to happen again. So he really 4-man B4U Survivors round 1 when he needed a 4-man. He looked very impressive. Dream Witch is not his strong suit, but to come out that strong and put up a 4-man type performance is impressive. He then goes and 4-mans them as Poland, which is his strong suit, and then he beats them with Naiad. So that's he didn't lose a single match, but he really won all 3 of those matches. He goes against Weibo. I believe he ties the 2nd round Sculptor game against Mech, but that's just Mech. His Sculptor looked very strong. He looked very strong against Weibo, and he did exactly what he had to do against that team. And finally against Wolves, which is the strongest Survivor team in the world. 1st round, he had a tie against them. He made a mistake. That's a throw that you cannot make here against SST, or they will be eliminated. But he basically tied Wolves round 1. If you can tie Wolves as a hunter round 1, you are a very strong hunter. And he basically had that tie. Round 2, his Sculptor was very good. He did all the right things. He just got Cypher rushed. And that happens sometimes. It's a very bad Sculptor map in Moonlit. And then round 3, he had the tie as Orange Factory Poland. He just needs the win, so he pushed for it. And he looked very good there. So AG's hunting and surviving have looked very strong both. SST's hunting has obviously looked very strong. Their survivors have put up impressive performances. But to be honest, I'm taking AG in this matchup. I think that AG has looked better to me so far than SST. I trust their survivors more, and I think their hunting, while may not be as consistent, packs a bigger punch. And this matchup all depends on round 1. They will have Silk's Dream Witch. PB Cha will be able to go Poland, whether it's their pick and they pick Chinatown, or it's SST and they pick Eversleeper and they try to pick Orange Factory to counter the Poland. Silk's Dream Witch really decides the fate of this game, because I have not seen AG survivors face a good Dream Witch. The only Dream Witch they faced, they got 4-man by, and that was because of a throw. But but I haven't seen them face many good Dream Witches, and that's what scares me. But if they can withstand Silk's Dream Witch, then I think they have the advantage going forward, because Elf is a tying type of hunter. So I am picking AG to advance. Let's move to the bottom left. We have GG versus ZQ here, and everyone's gonna pick GG. That's what most people have. If GG had PP Jha, I would pick them, but PP Jha does not seem like, unless GG's just hiding him and he's gonna be the biggest surprise. If PP Jha comes out and he plays round 1, GG wins. Period. If PP Jha is playing all the rounds for this team, GG has a ticket to finals, and there's no team that can stop them from doing that. And they will even be able to put up a very, very good final when we get there. But I have to go off of what I've seen, and what I've seen is PP Jha isn't gonna play. He only played against BL because the series was over, and he's just gone back into competitive. So if you're giving me Sham for GG versus ZQ, I have to pick ZQ, because Afu is the weak point of ZQ right now. He's been playing very inconsistent, very poorly. But if I have to go with Afu or Jam for my money, give me Afu, because he's been the better hunter throughout his career than Jam has ever been, and he's used to high pressure situations. So while he's inconsistent, I just have to go with Afu in that matchup. And ZQ Survivors are peak ZQ Survivors. They look very strong. ZQ Survivors are probably second best in the world right now, only to Wolves. And GG Survivors are very strong too. They're probably the third best Survivors. So GG and ZQ Survivors are both nearly the same level. So Survivor play, in my opinion, won't decide the fate of this matchup, because I think both will put up very good performances, but hunting will decide it. And if I have to pick between Zom or Afu, even with his inconsistency, I have to pick Afu, because I trust his poll in round 1 more than Zom. I trust his Dream Witch coming out round 2 more than Zom, not if he needs to win having to pull out a Sculptor. And Zom doesn't have much winning potential after round 1, while Afu always does. I trust Afu's Bloody Queen round 2 and round 3 for ties more than I trust Zom's tie hunter. So this can really go either way, but it just depends on hunting for me. And I have to pick ZQ to beat GG. Maybe a surprise to some. Most people have GG all the way in the finals, and I can definitely see it, but I have to pick ZQ. Next we have Wolves versus ACT. Oh, and to speak on the last side, I will say if Weibo is very similar to ZQ. They have less consistent survivors than ZQ, but they have a more consistent hunter. If it is Weibo versus GG, GG has the upper hand, but Weibo technically could win, but GG would have the upper hand. We have Wolves versus ACT now. I'm not going to spend too much time here. Wolves wins this, just because they're survivors. And Alex, ACT survivors have been very inconsistent. Alex probably would not lose a single match to them, so he would probably tie at worst. And Wolves against you, ACT's hunter, probably would not. They haven't lost a match in so long. They have a perfect 100% win rate. They wouldn't lose to you. So I just can't see any way ACT wins. ACT has not had good success against Wolves in IVL, and I don't see that changing. So I think Wolves, if they get MS, that makes things a bit more complicated. But the issue with MS is their hunting is going to lose every match to Wolves, because their hunting, while very strong, plays unorthodox. And when you're playing a round 1 and against a team like Wolves, they're not losing to it. When you play around 2 Mad Eyes, Wolves is not losing to it. A Dream Witch, they're not losing to that. MS is very strong hunting, and it's really good against teams like ACT. It gives them a wild card. That's why they can beat a team like ACT. But against Wolves, which serves that good, it becomes a liability. And Alex probably would not lose a match. So either way, Wolves will be off to the semifinals. Next, we have Dow5 versus MRC. This is a very interesting matchup because these two teams are very similar, especially their hunting. Both use round 1 Dream Witches. Both depend on that round 1 to win. And for me, if this was the MRC of IVL autumn season, I would probably pick MRC, but the survivors have not shown me any consistency, and the way MRC survivors are playing right now, they would get 4 men by DX at least 1 match, if not 2, and XC cannot keep this team alive if their survivors are losing that much. Dow5 survivors have looked very good so far in COA. DX has not looked like his usual self, but it all depends on MRC survivors. Round 1, I actually give that advantage to MRC. I think XC's Dream Witch is better than DX. XC, what people don't realize, was the original Dream Witch. XC has been the best Dream Witch in the world for a very long time, and DX only became the best Dream Witch when XC really started to struggle. Late, second season IVL and third season IVL especially, when XC really was struggling, DX took it because DX was at his peak, and he's been at his peak ever since IVL. But XC at his best is the best Dream Witch in the world, and right now XC is at his best, and he looks like it. While DX, his only Dream Witch performance was a loss so far in COA to ZQ. XC has that advantage there, but past that, DX has that advantage. These two teams faced off in IVL playoffs. I believe MRC beat Dow5 the first time, but then they faced again, if I'm not mistaken, and Dow5 beat MRC to make finals. It will be a very, very good matchup. But I trust in MRC survivors. I think they will play better, and I have to pick MRC to beat Dow5. Yeah, I have to pick MRC here. Next, we have on the left side AG versus ZQ. AG is a very strong team. I would not be surprised if AG makes finals. I really won't. But I have to pick ZQ because I think ZQ, if you get to that point where you already beat Weibo and GG and you're a game away from making finals again, which is where you lost last year, and you know this may be your final time with the current group you have playing together, I don't think they will lose to a global team in AG. I think ZQ serves will really focus and play the best they've played. I don't think they would lose a match to PB Cha. And Afu, I think, could get a win. It's a best of 5. I think Afu could get a win in those 5 rounds. He could tie at least 2 to 3 of the others and maybe only lose 1. And if they have that type of, if they do that, I think ZQ would win. If not in rounds, at least by points. So I have to pick ZQ here to make finals. Let's say ZQ faced SST, which is the popular pick. SST, ZQ, I don't see much difference. I think SST could put up a little bit of a better challenge, but I don't see much difference. I would pick ZQ to win that too. I've seen ZQ versus SST, in IVS, and ZQ beat SST. I don't think anything would change. I think ZQ wins. Again, so either way, I think ZQ wins. If it's GG, I think GG loses. If it's zone playing, I think GG loses to SST or AG. If it's PP shot, I already said GG easily makes finals. So if it's GG in that position and they face SST, I have to pick SST. If they face AG, I have to pick AG. They could win, but I just have to favor SST or AG. I have to favor the Japanese teams. But I have AG versus ZQ, and I do have ZQ now advancing to the finals, which puts AG in the 3rd place match. On the right side, we have Wolves versus MRC. And Wolves actually at their peak, MRC actually at their peak was strong enough to beat Wolves. If you look at the playoffs of last IVL, with after 2 rounds in a best of 5, Wolves, I keep messing this up. MRC had the advantage because they beat Alex round 1, XC tied, they both tied round 2. What happened was Wolves took XC Spider for a win, which really messed everything up because that's a tie hunter and you have to be able to tie. And then MRC tried to overcompensate for this, play for a win, and they lost. So Wolves ended up winning. But MRC at their peak really could take Wolves on a good day. But I don't think MRC is at their peak right now. I don't like the way the survivors are playing. I don't trust in MRC winning 2 matches against Alex, which is what you need to do to beat Wolves. And while XC can possibly do something round 1, that's where MRC's advantage will come. Past that, I see him having a lot of difficulty against Wolves survivors because he's not the most versatile hunter, and he can't go something like Sculptor that's getting beat by Wolves. Past the Bloody Queen, he's not going to be able to tie consistently unless it's Spider on a really good map for her. Geisha, I could see that getting beat by Wolves. So I have to pick Wolves here in the best of 5 to beat MRC. I think Wolves is the best team in the world right now. I would have to pick Wolves to win that too because DX has not had good performances against Wolves. And Wolves, they faced off in the finals of IVL, both the summer and autumn season. Wolves won both times. The summer season was very close. The autumn season was not even close. I think the gap has gotten even wider between the 2 teams. I think Wolves easily beats Dow 5 in 3 to 4 rounds. So Wolves is on to the final. But let's first do the 3rd place matchup. That is AG versus MRC. And I actually have AG winning. I think it'd be a really good 5-round matchup. But I do have AG winning over MRC because I kind of trust the survivors more at this point. I think in 5 rounds, that diminishes the power of round 1. In a best of 3, having the stronger round 1 will almost always guarantee you the win. But in a best of 5, it diminishes the power of that because there's so many more rounds to come back from it. And that's what MRC's issue will be in a best of 5 against Wolves and now a best of 5 against AG. If we take IVL playoffs for example, when they faced Wolves and they took round 1 and after 2 rounds they were leading, they tied round 2. If that's a best of 3, they can play complete conservative there, tie it, and then they beat Wolves. But because it's a best of 5, they can't play conservative. And when XC ends up losing as Spider, they have to overcompensate to try to win. That's MRC's issue, is they've always been a really strong round 1 team, but in a best of 5, it diminishes the power of that and more favors versatility and consistency, which is XC is not the most versatile hunter, and MRC servers are not the most consistent survivors. So when I see AG, who's a very versatile team in terms of their hunting, PB can play mini hunters, and the survivors have been nothing but consistent ever since their first match. I'm actually picking AG to beat MRC there. If it's Dow 5 in that matchup, I picked Dow 5 to win. Lastly, we have the finals. It's Wolves versus ZQ. And this is probably not the finals most people are expecting. I haven't seen anyone pick ZQ to make finals, so I know I'm in the minority here. I was in the minority when I picked AG to beat SST, but I'm confident in it. All of these teams are really good. It can obviously go either way. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Weibo in the finals. I really wouldn't. But in my eyes, I see the ZQ versus Wolves final, and I think ZQ gives Wolves a much harder time than anyone will expect. It's the finals of COA, and I think your game gets stronger. I think ZQ survivors will play near perfect against Alex. In a stage as big as this, I think they lose one game to Alex, and that's what will ruin their chances here. But I think ZQ will play Alex very, very strong, and they will realize that if they don't drop a game to Alex, they can win this in 5 rounds. As great as Wolves survivors are, if you can match Wolves survivors against what is probably a weaker hunter, if you can match Wolves survivors performance, and ZQ survivors are strong enough to do so, if you can match that, then you can beat them. But I think Alex has been the most clutch hunter in IVL. He's clutched it out both IVL finals. I think he would clutch out a win against ZQ when the lights are the brightest. I think he'd be able to win a match. And the issue with Afu is, while Afu used to be a hunter that gave Wolves survivors problems, he gave Wolves survivors issues really for the first season of IVL, second season of IVL, and third season of IVL. Afu has had some of the best performance against ZQ of any hunter. I mean, against Wolves of any hunter. But ever since the last season of IVL, that kinda has gone away, and he has not looked so great against Wolves as his play has diminished. And that's my concern. Against Wolves, you don't need the strongest hunters. Having a hunter like DX, a home run type hunter, is actually not the way to go. Against Wolves, you need a very consistent hunter, a PP Ja, a Ken. If they had Ken, I think ZQ can beat Wolves. If GG has PP Ja, GG can beat Wolves. But the home run type of hunters like DX and what Afu is doesn't really work against Wolves, because you're giving those survivors an opportunity to win. When you're facing a hunter like Ken or PB Ja and they're playing strictly for ties, and they are very consistent at that, it's going to be really hard for Wolves to win matches because they aren't giving you chances to win those matchups. So when Wolves survivors maybe make a mistake in 5 rounds, PP Ja Ken, they will take advantage of that and win. And that's all you need. Now, if Wolves survivors never mess up, it's just going to go 5 rounds, and it's strictly just based off of points and can go either way. But that's why those hunters are better against Wolves than home run type of hunters like DX and Afu, who have better performance against some weaker survivor teams, because they're able to capitalize off of those mistakes better to win games. But Wolves aren't giving you many mistakes to capitalize off of in the first place. So what tends to happen is those types of hunters start looking for plays. They start reaching for plays because they're looking for anything they can take to win that game. But Wolves isn't giving them anything. And when you start reaching for that, that's when the Wolves survivors capitalize off of it. They take advantage of you being greedy, of you being risky, and that risk you take turns into Wolves winning, if not four-manning you. And that's my concern with Afu, is he's not the type of hunter I would want in this matchup. ZQ survivors can do their best to match Wolves survivors, but I would want a hunter like Ken or PPJA here to match Alex, but to even be able to outplay Alex. And Alex is that way. He's just a consistent type hunter. And Afu isn't that. He's a home run type of hunter, and he hasn't had much success against Wolves doing that. And that's why I have to pick Wolves to win finals against EQ in probably 4 rounds. Maybe 5 if they got lucky, but I think the 5th round would just be one of those Hail Mary type rounds if they did get there. And I think Wolves beat ZQ. Wolves really can't lose. The only team, in my opinion, that can beat Wolves in this bracket is GG with PPJA. That's the only team, and even they have a small chance. But if you give me GG survivors, they can match the performance of Wolves survivors, and you give me PPJA, he can be consistent enough to beat Wolves at least one time. But any other team in this bracket, I just can't see how they're able to beat Wolves. None of the Japanese teams, I don't think any of the IVO teams can really beat them. ZQ, they're stuck with Afu at this point. They're not getting Kim back. So I think that's their downside. Because the formula to beating Wolves most of the time essentially is to try to out Wolves, which is you need survivors strong enough, ZQGG for example, to match Wolves survivor performances. So they have to match it against Alex, because Alex isn't the strongest hunter in the world. So it makes, basically, when Wolves faces Dow 5, for example, right? Wolves survivors have to play better than Dow 5 survivors have to play to get the same result. Because for Wolves to beat DX, that's harder than for Dow 5 survivors to beat Alex. So Wolves always has the harder task. So that's why you need survivors like ZQ or GG that even though they aren't as good as Wolf survivors, because they're facing a bit of a weaker hunter in Alex. And I think that Alex is one of the best hunters in the world. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying in terms of his lineup and you know, his average performance wise, but really his lineup, and that he's weaker in terms of lineup. You need survivors like ZQ or GG to match that survivor performance Wolves is putting up. And then you need a hunter to, and when you do that, you make it strictly Alex versus your hunter. Now it's no longer, let's say, Wolves versus ZQ. It becomes Alex versus Afu. Who's better? You know, it's no longer Wolves versus Dow 5. It's Alex versus DX. Who's better? When you make it into that matchup, now it looks a lot easier, doesn't it? Because while Alex is really good, you can start to think, okay, I can outplay Alex in 5 rounds. I can outplay, you know, and when you make it that's when you can win. XC versus Alex. You start liking XC more than Alex. You start liking DX more than Alex. PPJA more than Alex. Maybe Ken. But that requires such strong survivor performance to make it into that matchup, or else Wolves is going to get Wolves survivors versus your survivors, and you're never winning that matchup because they're simply the best survivors in the world. So that's why for ZQ, even if the survivors try to make it Afu against Alex, I'm still picking Alex because he's the more consistent hunter and he's been better all season. So now if you had Ken versus Alex, I may pick Ken. If you had PPJA versus Alex, I may pick PPJA. But Jom against Alex, I'm picking Alex. Afu against Alex, I'm picking Alex. So that's why Wolves has the advantage of over those two teams. And then the hunter teams like Dow5 and MRC, it's not XE versus Alex. It's not DX versus Alex. If it was, those two teams could win. But MRC and Dow5 survivors aren't good enough to make it into that matchup. So that's why I can't see any team really beating Wolves in all of COA. But I do hope you enjoyed the prediction video. I'll definitely be watching COA. I may stream some of it. I've been thinking about doing that. So if you want to see me do that, make sure to tell me in the comments below. And I'm so excited to watch this weekend. I hope you guys are excited to watch too. If you did enjoy this video and want to see more videos like this in the future, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. But that'll be all for the video. Bye.